The Defenders is a culmination of all the Netflix shows that have released beforehand. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage are all coming together to try and go up against the Hand. I remember watching this show back when it first came out and being so excited for it. I loved most of the Netflix stuff. I really loved the first 2 seasons of Daredevil. I loved the first season of Jessica Jones. I really enjoyed Luke Cage. Iron Fist I thought was a bit overhated. I thought it was enjoyable, but definitely not the best of the Defenders shows. But I was excited for his inclusion in the Defenders and how all these characters will come together to go up against the Hand. And all in all, I thought the show was really good at the time. And what do I think of it now? I still say it's pretty good, though I think I overhyped it a bit back when I was much younger. The Defenders is not a perfect show as much as I wanted it to be. I thought that this was going to be the Avengers of the Marvel Netflix side of the MCU. But there are a few things holding it back. For one, many of the side characters from Luke Cage, Daredevil, and Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones, they all feel like that they were holding the plot. And whenever we cut to something involving them, it felt like the show was slowing down and the pacing was dragging quite a bit. And it was a bit of a problem for me whenever we come back to those characters, because they just don't have that much meat in the plot to do now, because the whole show is so focused on our 4 core characters and how they're trying to work together to go up against the Hand, which is by far the most intriguing and most interesting element of this show, and is the thing that the show did the most right. And these characters and their banter with one another, I felt was so natural. I loved their chemistry, the way they were able to team up against so many bad guys and get into many fights, and there's a lot of cool action here. I loved a lot of the action, though there are some times where it can feel a little bit cheap. For some reason, this show feels like its budget was cut back a bit, and not all the fights look the most convincing or they're the most well shot. I felt like a lot of the action from many of the other shows was a lot more engaging and had a lot more style and versatility. And it still has plenty of versatility here, but there's not as much of it, and I think that's due to the 8 episode count that the show has that made some of those problems a little bit more egregious. Usually these Netflix shows go for 13 episodes. This one is a short miniseries comprised of 8 episodes, and it does show at times because the pacing of this show being a lot faster and some of the other characters not having all that much to do. So I think it was wise for the show to try and focus a lot more on our 4 core individual characters, as we already know who these characters are, and it's just about these characters learning how to work together. Jessica Jones, again, once played by Kristen Ritter, is fantastic, and I loved her character. I'll probably get around to her show one of these days, but I really enjoyed her dynamic with a lot of the characters, including Luke Cage and Daredevil, especially Daredevil, as the first parts of the show involving her and Daredevil and how she's starting to learn his secret, which leads to him eventually having to join the Defenders, is really interesting to watch. And I loved all the little moments where a lot of these characters at first don't get along with one another, especially Luke Cage and Iron Fist, who in this show is a lot better than he was in his own show. He has a lot more to do here. The dialogue he's given is a lot better. He's doing less business stuff and doing a lot more Iron Fist action, and I felt like his character was a lot better written than he was in his own show, in terms of exploring who this character is, his personality, and why he's going after the hand. And the show portrays him as the one character that is okay with being a part of a team and is trying his best to bring everyone together. He's essentially trying to be the heart and soul of this team, and eventually he does become that, as his character is so integral into trying to defeat the Hand, who is led by the villain played by Sigourney Weaver, and I really enjoyed her character as well. She is not as mustache twirly as most other villains could be, and she has a bit more depth. You can understand her motivation. You still feel that she is an antagonizing presence here, but really she's just the person who just gives out the orders, and Elektra is the person who essentially has to go into action and do her dirty work. And I felt like Elektra as a character here is a lot more interesting than she was in season 2 of Daredevil. I felt like she had a lot better of an arc here and a lot more interesting of an arc here. Her relationship with Matt Murdock is not as much explored here, but because it was explored still quite a bit in season 2, you understand who these characters are, their relationship, and you are kind of like rooting for Matt to be able to try and get Elektra back from the point she is in now. And so it becomes a bit of a conflict of interest with Daredevil going up against the Hand. And Luke Cage, played by Mike Colter, is just fantastic. He oozes cool. I loved his power set and him being able to be the one guy who is not okay with any of this and just want to go about his day, and him learning to eventually learn how to team up with people and accept help from others. I really enjoyed that little arc and how that's explored with him and his relationship with Iron Fist. All in all, I thought The Defenders was still a pretty good show. Not perfect, pretty flawed. I felt like the budget was cut back a bit, and you could tell at many points it feels a little bit cheaper than the other shows. I felt like some of the side characters were less well integrated into the story of this show, but what the show does really well for me was have us care about the Defenders themselves, and that is the show's biggest strength in my opinion. And these characters work really well together. Their chemistry is great. A lot of the action they're in is really fun to watch. The story is a lot more simple and less convoluted than before, as this is essentially the payoff to a lot of those storylines from the previous shows. And all in all, I still found myself having a pretty good time with the Defenders. I'm going to give the Defenders a B+. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.